welcome officially to the Zoom room. John, Francis, thanks for the shares. It's good preparation really for today's teaching. So we'll dive into that. Give me and we'll have a look at today's email and quote, and that'll lead us nicely into the lesson. Also some text today, so if you're up for it, we can carry on. All right, so today's session we talk about how to give the miracles you have received, and the attraction of guilt, overcoming the attraction of guilt, which is a big part of the ego's thought system, as we know. Okay, so we're live, so you know we're being recorded. Yeah, and okay. So, John, if you can read the quote for today.
Yeah. There are only two ways to live your life. One is as though nothing is a miracle. The other is as though everything is a miracle. Albert Einstein.
Yeah, Einstein's a very interesting guy, wasn't he? Because, I mean, that's hardly a scientific quote at all. It's a philosophical quote. Interesting in itself, because most scientists deny that miracles are possible. So the fact that he was even using the language meant that he was going beyond science. And you talk to most scientists about miracles, and they just roll their eyes and they go, "Oh, oh great, we got some delusional God botherer who's talking to me." But in the latter part of his life, Einstein became more of a philosopher, even a mystic, who was trying to see deeper than the physical laws. He spent the first part of his stellar career, when he had a phenomenally productive career for the sort of 25 years of it. Created the theory of relativity, special general theory of relativity, work on photons, won a Nobel Prize. He should have won 2 more, according to the scientific intelligentsia, because why he didn't win a Nobel Prize for theory of relativity and special theory of relativity, no one ever knows why. I mean, that was groundbreaking work. Why didn't they give it to him? He won one for the work on light, on photons that he did. But then in those last 25 years, people said, well, what happened? He went to Princeton in 1930 and fleeing, what was happening in Germany at the time. And really just didn't do anything of significance. There's no new work. But I think he was thinking. He was really deeply pondering the mysteries of the universe, and he was searching for grand unified theory that would unite the 4 seemingly separate observable forces of gravity, electromagnetism, strong nuclear force in one theory that explained all of them and didn't contradict itself. And he failed. He couldn't find it. And everyone who's attempted this has. So there isn't a grand unified theory. They have something called the standard model, which is an equation that tries to kind of, there are problems with it and there are contradictions. And I don't think this is because he wasn't intelligent enough to figure it out, but because it's impossible to unify the fragmented universe of the ego, which remember is just the belief in separation, into one simple formula. How do you make separation into oneness. The idea of separation that is its foundation means that it's fragmented, chaotic, and incapable of unity by definition. So you're trying to what cannot be unified within its framework. If you look at its laws, these things we observe, the observable forces, then and try and create unification on that level, you'll fail, because unity doesn't exist on that level. It's the projection of the idea of separation. So that doesn't mean that unity doesn't exist, but only that you won't find it in the manifestations of the idea of separation, which is what the entire physical universe is, a projection of the belief in separation outside the mind that projected it to create the illusion or delusion of separation of the mind from its source and its projections, as Einstein himself observed. So, he was starting to really awaken to the fundamental truth that the world is just an illusion. So, Francis, if you can read that one for us, let me make it a bit bigger for you. Can you read that quote?
Yeah, a human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings are something separated from the rest, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. This delusion is a kind of prison for us, restricting us to our personal desires and to affection for a few persons nearest to us. Our task must be to free ourselves from this prison by widening our circle of compassion to embrace all of living creatures and the whole of nature in its beauty. Albert Einstein. It's a wise man. Before his time.
Yeah. And that is not a scientific statement, is it? He was a philosopher. He was looking, deeper into matters of the mind and the heart, and understanding that actually it was all connected. And his path to getting there was through science. It became a spiritual path for him of awakening to a deeper truth. And I think that's what happened in his final 25 years. He was more contemplating. He was like, okay, I'm just trying to figure this out now and find this, grand unified theory. And I think he failed. And I don't know, where he was in terms of his own awakening, whether he realized that he'd failed because it wasn't possible. He was, as he himself said, the significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. If he realized the profundity of what that statement says, you can't solve the problems of separation at the level of separation. Maybe he realized that, this just wasn't possible, and that there was a transcendent dimension beyond this one in which all the laws of physics and science broke down. So why scientists don't like it, because, their domain is within those laws. And before time zero, as they admit. I was listening to a talk by a quantum physicist in Cambridge, and he's saying, well, at time zero, we have no idea. We don't know what went on before then. It's this unknown. So all the scientific laws break down, and then you no longer, your science is useless there. So I think maybe Albert was starting to intuit that, and move into that domain of pure formless awareness, of perfect love, the transcendent, and become more of a certainly philosopher, and maybe even a mystic, because the mystics then have personal experience of this domain that he's pointing to. So he was starting to awaken, and science had just been his path to do that. And just goes to show you, it doesn't matter what your path is, all leads to the same place. He's saying this is something a spiritual teacher, who's a non-dual teacher, could say. So it leads to the same conclusion. So Francis, I don't know if you've tried this before, but have a look at that picture, and just immediately say, what do you see?
Like cake. Is it like a cake, a cheesecake?
You see a cheesecake. Okay. Did you see that first, or did you see something else first?
No, I just seen cheesecake.
Okay. Okay. Interesting. So can you see another view of that?
Okay. Layers.
Yeah. What could that be that's totally different from a cheesecake?
I don't know.
Well, a lot of people, I when I first saw it, I thought it was a boat in the ocean.
A boat in the ocean. I don't. Hold on.
Yes.
I
Eh?
don't see
Well,
that.
look at the shape of it. It's got the shape of a boat, and then you've got this kind of dark stuff that could be water that's sort of ripply and bubbly. And when I first saw it, and many people, they look at it and they go, oh, yeah, it's a boat. And then, you look again. And the reason I included it was because there's two ways of looking at it. So you might look at it as a boat and then go, oh, actually it's not a boat at all. It's a cheesecake. Totally, something totally different, which kind of shows you the delusion of our senses, of our perceptions, that our perceptions can be completely false. So you just went straight to the cheesecake.
Yeah.
Now, so do you like cheesecake? Do you like food?
I used to before I gave up dairy, but yes, I love bacon. I love, yeah. So that's why I would,
yeah. So then you see your mind is tuned to that, to see that. And so you go, well, yes, obviously it's a cheesecake, but someone who's not, let's say, more into travel, might go, oh, actually I see it as a boat on an ocean. So we interpret not as it is, but as we are. That's really the message. And that really is an optical delusion of our consciousness, because the reality can be something completely different, but we interpret it according to our past, our conditioning, our programming, our desires. And this is how our so-called reality works. We think it's objective reality, but it's not. It's based on our programming that we perceive accordingly. So you saw that immediately because you're into food. You're a foodie. Okay, well, a foodie's probably going to see that, but if you're not and you're more into travel, then you're probably going to see a boat. Some people even said, oh, I see a shark. It's like, really? A shark? Okay.
I'd see a shark quicker than I'd see a boat.
I suppose you can kind of see a mouth there,
Yeah.
depending on, but it all depends on what you want to see, so you see your mind interprets the apparent, objective reality of the picture and creates a meaning for it, doesn't it? And that's how perception works. So the picture just illustrates what he's saying. There's no objective reality. It's all perceptual, and we make up the meaning that things have for us. And so you can see, the same thing and have completely different interpretations of it. And I think we've all had that experience. I remember once when I really started getting this, way before I started studying the course, but I was in my early 20s or late teens. I went to see a movie with a friend. It was called what was it called? It was with Robert Redford, Demi Moore, and Woody Harrelson, and it was called Indecent Proposal. Do you remember it? It's quite an old one, like late 80s. So the story of the movie was that this guy, this couple fell on hard times. They needed money to save their house. They had a little bit, but not enough to to save the house. So they went to Las Vegas. They were like, okay, well, we're going to gamble it. We're going to try and win the money. And then they see, of course, they end up losing it all. But Demi Moore, who's a beautiful woman, is spotted by a billionaire, Robert Redford, and he rather fancies her. So he makes them a proposal. He says, okay, well, $1 million. I'll give you $1 million for one night with your wife, effectively asking her to prostitute herself. And and they discuss it, and they, they agree. They say, well, look, it's one night, and then our house is saved. And but of course he can't bear it. Just as she's taking off in the helicopter, he's like, oh, he's changed his mind, but it's too late. And so then there's this whole special relationship drama that unfolds, and he's trying to get her back, but now she's with the billionaire, and so the billionaire's sidekick, sort of 2IC guy, goes into his Woody Harrelson's home and sees him, and he's passed out. He's drunk too much, and he sees a photograph that's been torn in half, exactly down the middle. So it's the two of them, and he's torn it in half, and then he's taped it back together. And so the guy gives a little kind of wry smile. And so I'm like, well, it's a smile of understanding. He's understanding what this guy's been through, the emotional torment. And then my friend after the movie said, oh, that guy was such a bastard. And I said, why do you say that? He said, yeah, because he was mocking him. He was that smile was because he was mocking him and condemning him. And I said, no. It's a smile of understanding. He had actually empathy. He was understanding what he'd been through. And he kind of, had a little wry smile. But you see, the same situation, two people seeing exactly the same situation in a movie theater, and he interprets it one way and I interpret it completely differently. And I was really struck by that. I was like, wow, that's so interesting, that it's the same situation and I perceive it completely differently from him, and we don't agree. Based on, it must be based on our thought systems. It's not the movie. It's how we're perceiving it. And interestingly, I fell out with him. We didn't remain friends for too much longer because we just didn't share the same thought system, as I discovered when I moved in with him in Diggs. But anyway, that's another story. Big forgiveness lesson, one of my first major ones. But it was because he had a different thought system, and it was a thought system based on judgment and attack and condemnation, and which is why he perceived it in that way. And I didn't think that way. So I perceived that the guy actually had empathy and compassion. And, those two thought systems don't agree on anything, because the one is coming from the Holy Spirit and the other is coming from the ego. And this was long before I knew all this stuff, but it was part of how I learned it. So, the reality is not objective, it's perceptual. And Einstein started to understand that. And quantum mechanics then came along in the 1920s and said, yeah, actually, it is completely perceptual. There's no reality in the absence of observation. In fact, that's the interpretation of most common interpretation, called the Copenhagen interpretation of quantum mechanics. There is no reality in the absence of observation. That's quite a statement, isn't it? Okay, so there's nothing going on unless you observe it. Without the observer, there is no reality. Okay, so maybe the reality is not real. Maybe the reality is a figment of the observer's imagination. That's what it opens the way to, doesn't it? Which is why one of the founders, I think it was Heisenberg or Schrödinger, said when he was interviewed at the end of his life about quantum mechanics, what he thought about it. He said, I don't like it, and I wish I'd never had anything to do with it. And Niels Bohr was another one of the founders, said, if you're not completely shocked by quantum mechanics, then you haven't understood it, because it's starting to blow away the ego's default perception that this world is real, and question that reality and say, well, actually, maybe it's not. Maybe you're just hallucinating, an optical delusion of consciousness, as Einstein stated it. So interesting that the science leads you to the same point of awakening to the truth as the mystics and the spiritual path does at the highest level. And which is why, we can read words by a scientist and go, well, that makes sense to us as, more, when we're more overtly spiritual, doing spiritual practices and philosophy, but it makes sense because it's true. And he was perceiving that same truth. Okay, so we literally went out of our minds when the universe began in what cosmologists have called the Big Bang, which is a massive explosion of energy that's expanding outwards ever since. And we obviously remain out of our minds as long as we believe we're living in a body in a world outside of us. So this diagram shows that process quite well. And really the Course is the only teaching that I've come across that actually explains the genesis of the universe. It explains it in metaphysical terms quite well, because other teachings, they don't really. God creates the heavens and the earth in 7 days. I mean, that's old religious stuff. We all know that's not true. Other various religions and thought systems have myths to try and explain it, but no one's really gone, okay, so this is really what birthed it, and Yeshua's actually explained it in the course. So it's just a tiny mad idea of separation. That's the problem. We thought an idea of separation, and then we believed it. This was the problem. We believed it. We wanted it. We desired it. So we believed it, and that kicked off a whole process of thought that then led to the Big Bang. And science can't explain why the Big Bang happened. The principle of modern science, as Rupert Sheldrake says, if you watch the video I sent out yesterday, is that, well, give us one free miracle and we'll take it from there. All the matter and energy in the universe appears in a single instant. We don't know why, and then okay, we'll take it from there, and we'll explain all the laws from there. But they have no idea how that came about, which means there's a big hole in the whole theory, which they don't want to really address, because they have no idea, because that is a philosophical question. How did the universe come about? That's a philosophical, scientific question. So they're out of their comfort zone, and you're in the domain of philosophers and spiritual teachers and mystics. Still very uncomfortable when they go there, which is why they just gloss over it. So in that talk in Cambridge that I mentioned, this guy mentions, probably the most profound thing he says in one sentence. At time t equals 0, which is before the Big Bang, we have no idea. We really don't know what happens, and all of our models and all of our laws break down there. And then he just swiftly moves on. Whereas, as Churchill said, men stumble over the truth from time to time, but then most pick themselves up and hurry off as if nothing had ever happened. And that's exactly what he did, because he stumbled over the truth there briefly. Time t equals 0. Okay, beyond time, beyond space, what exists there? And we won't even consider that. We'll just carry on in our model, the quantum model, quantum fields he was talking about, and we'll try and describe the illusion better with the model. But we won't consider that actually there's this great truth, the great ocean of truth, as Isaac Newton called it, that lies all undiscovered, because it's too scary for his ego to go there and realize that his science is actually useless there. And that if he really wants to grapple with that, he has to let go of everything that has brought him to that point of awakening, and not be a scientist anymore. So then, the ego kicks in and says, no, this is, you as a self-concept. The self-concept defines you, and scientists have it as well. So then they're not objective. They say, oh, we're objective. No, they're not objective at all. They have their own egos. They have their own paradigm, their own dogma, as Rupert Sheldrake says. This isn't science anymore. It's a dogma. They believe it blindly, and they ignore the evidence to the contrary. So that's not science. That's dogma. That's just like a religion, which is why his TED talk was banned, because he was really, undermining the entire scientific materialist paradigm that underpins our material world and our society. Okay, so let's go back to this. So while we're seemingly living in a body in this world, we do have the choice of how to perceive everything in the world, which is what Einstein is alluding to in today's quote. So, it's a perceptual reality. We have the choice to perceive it differently. We can choose to perceive everything as only what it appears to be. In other words, there's no deeper or higher dimension of reality than the physical universe. It is the ultimate reality, a perception that philosopher Ken Wilber calls flatland, and which has found its best expression in the scientific materialist worldview based on Newtonian physics, which postulates that the physical universe operates according to fixed laws independent of the observer. So that was Newton's idea, and that's been completely disproved by quantum mechanics. And Einstein, theory of relativity, indicates that it's all relative. There's no absolute fixed reality. It's relative to the observer. It's relative to what else is happening. The speed of light operates speed of light changes according to how fast the observer is traveling, things like that. So there's no absolute reality. It's relative, hence theory of relativity. So it's not fixed. And interestingly, in the talk that I put here for you to watch, Rupert Sheldrake talks about the constants of nature. So things like the speed of light and big G, which is the force of gravity. And he's saying, but actually they vary. The measurements vary. So these aren't fixed constants. They actually change, not by a lot, but they change by like 0.5%, 1%, which is quite significant. And science doesn't want to acknowledge that. Science says, no, they're constants. He says, well, how do you know they're constants if they change? Oh, no, those are measurement errors. Well, maybe they're not measurement errors. Maybe they actually do change, which then indicates that there is no fixed reality here. And the reason why they're saying there's a fixed reality is because they want to believe in the absolute reality and nature of this world, which makes their ego real. And they don't want to question and say, well, maybe actually there's something deeper that is fixed, that is absolute and unchanging. And we won't find it in this reality. So, it's just another defense of the ego. So alternatively, we can choose to perceive a dimension of reality or reality beyond this flatland of material objects and bodies while we still perceive them with our physical senses. This, quote, seeing happens not with our body's eyes, but with our minds that reinterpret our sense perceptions in a transcendent way to free us from limiting beliefs such as scarcity, suffering, sickness, and death seem to be expressed in the forms of this world. Therefore, as Einstein points out, the choices between seeing nothing as a miracle, i.e. as part of scientific materialist flatland, and that's all there is to it, or everything as a miracle, i.e. to perceive the deeper dimension or presence of pure formless awareness that underlies every form in the choices. And that's really what he means by his quote, the choices to perceive everything as a miracle or nothing as a miracle. And we had to go through quite a lot of understanding and unpacking to understand what he really means by that quote. When you choose the form of flatland worldview, there's nowhere else to go, and you must accept that you're mortal and bound to experience age, suffering, death from the day you're born. This perception doesn't explain what happens before birth and after death, or why the universe and the separate forms of life that seem to populate it exist at all. Right? Flatland doesn't explain any of that. These huge unanswered questions and can only be maintained through denial that anything other than the world shown to you by your physical senses is real. So it's the belief, really, if you look at the integral model, it's the belief that this exterior world, only the exterior quadrants are real. That's the extreme of the flatland scientific and materialist worldview. Only this stuff is real, and these quadrants don't even exist. Right? The interior domains, it's all woo-woo, we're hallucinating, we're making it up. The only reality that can be counted on is as the exterior world. And that, really has been completely disproven by science. Many philosophers, have looked at it and gone, this doesn't make any sense, because what generates this external reality? Well, that's the question that science can't answer. Oh, well, it's self-generated. Okay, so there's no intelligence then. Really what they've done, the scientific materialist paradigm, is strip consciousness out of the equation. So there's no consciousness behind the universe. It's just kind of atoms and molecules spinning around, and there's no intention. There's no kind of higher consciousness. It's all just kind of randomly happened in this single free miracle that they believe happened, the Big Bang, and then everything is just unconscious matter. And actually, we're not really even conscious either, because our consciousness is based on our brain function. And when the brain dies, we die. I mean, these are the kinds of beliefs that come from scientific materialist paradigm, all of which have been called into question and disproven. But yet, that's still the dominant worldview, which is what Rupert Sheldrake is saying. This is crazy. This isn't good science, because you're not going according to your scientific method of just observing and then saying, well, does our theory match the observations? And the scientific materialist paradigm, it doesn't. There's so much evidence to disprove it, from mystical experiences, near-death experiences, paranormal phenomena. Yeah, these are not explained by the scientific materialist paradigm at all. But then science just dismisses them. Things like the constants not being constant. These are all just dismissed and swept under the carpet and not really looked at. And because they don't want to question the underlying dogma. So then he's saying, well, that's no longer science. That's just a dogma, which actually is like a religion. So scientific materialism has become like the dominant world religion of our time. Most people wouldn't think of it as a religion, but it's a dominant thought system that most people, without question, buy into. And then they look externally for solutions. So we are trained from a young age in our, certainly Western society, to look outside of ourselves for answers. And so we look to parents, we look to authorities, we look to governments for guidance on what we should do, and we don't look within. And of course, that is part of the control system. And if we're looking outside of ourselves and not we can be involved. Sorry, everyone, just dropped out there briefly. Share my screen again. So this perception, the flatland worldview, this doesn't really explain very much. It leaves huge unanswered questions about our fundamental existence. It doesn't explain why we're even here, and so it doesn't satisfy our deeper minds, our souls, our spirits. You'll never find happiness in this perception because it isn't true, and it fails to give you any sense of real meaning in life. After all, if we really are only born to have a lifetime of fleeting and often unhappy experiences in which we can hold on to nothing and then are doomed to ultimately die, what meaning can our lives really have? On the other hand, the alternative miraculous perception offers a world of infinite meaning and purpose because it allows you to see beyond the appearance of things in this world to their essence, which is the primordial pure formless awareness that preceded the idea of separation and the consequent Big Bang that birthed the material universe. So we look at our diagram again. It's this. It's pure formless awareness of perfect love. It's God, love, oneness, many names for it, that existed before any idea of separation came into the mind. And it still exists. It's still there beyond the whole construct of separation. And that's what the Holy Spirit, which is just the remembrance of that state, is here to remind us of. And then that's the call. The reason why we're not happy in flatland is because it's not reality. And so there's this deeper call to awaken to reality. And there needs to be a cognitive dissonance. There needs to be some dissatisfaction with our current reality as seeming individuals living in bodies, living these helpless, innovative little lives of limitation, lack, loneliness, and suffering before our bodies die. There needs to be a dissatisfaction with that in order to question it and in order to awaken. So that's a necessary part of the process. And the turnaround happens when you do start to question. Often when we're so distressed and disturbed by our current reality that we question and we say, well, there must be a better way than this. And that's when the turnaround starts and the journey back home, out of this thought system of separation, back to perfect oneness starts. And we all have made that decision to turn around, otherwise you wouldn't be here, and question egos, paradigms, and this default thought system, scientific materialism, chief among them, to awaken to a deeper truth. So it's an infinite. This is an infinite, eternal presence, that because it is eternal, underlies all forms of matter and energy in this world. It's always been there. It's the ground of being. It's called in philosophical terms by some philosophers. So we choose to perceive this ground of being, this presence in everyone and everything. They become the miracles or corrections of transformed perception that show us this presence is real and underlies everyone and everything in this world of form. Yeshua calls this miraculous perception of the world Christ's vision in the Course of Miracles, says that it's essential to your true function in this world, just to be happy while you're apparently here and simultaneously prepare your mind to leave the world behind entirely. Process he calls salvation or at-one-ment. We translate as enlightenment or awakening in our translations of the workbook and the text. As he points out in today's workbook lesson, it's also essential that you perceive everyone and the world with the vision of Christ, or your true self, if you to help anyone else to heal their mind of the misperception of flatland and experience a happy dream while they walk the path of enlightenment, who will ultimately lead them to awaken from the dream, or as Einstein calls it, the optical delusion of consciousness. So that leads us into today's session, where we are now, and to the lesson. So I'm just going to pause there. It's quite a bit of teaching I've given there. I did it because if we take too long on that, we won't get to finish all of our material. Any questions or thoughts or comments on any of that?
I'm okay with everything, John.
Okay, Elaine? Okay, Elaine's not there. All right, so let's have a look at today's lesson. So 159. Okay, so if you can read the lesson in its original alternative form, John, and then paragraph 1.
I give the miracles I have received, or I give the corrections I have received. No one can give what he has not received. I can't give what I have not received. To give a thing requires first you have it in your own possession. To give a thing requires first I have it in my own possession. Here the laws of heaven and the world agree. Here the laws of the state of pure formless awareness and the world agree. But here they also separate. Same with the alternative. The world believes that to possess a thing, it must be kept. The world believes that to possess a thing, it must be kept. Or, salvation teaches otherwise. Awakening teaches otherwise. To give is how to recognize you have received. Give is how to recognize I have received. It is the proof that what you have is yours. It is the proof that what I have is mine. So he's saying here that
sorry, John, I keep dropping out. Fortunately not. So any thoughts on that one?
Yeah, well, I was making the point that in the spiritual sense, we demonstrate we have something by giving it away and sharing it or extending it. So that's his point, really.
Yeah, yeah. So we have it when we give it, because I can't give something if I don't have it. Proof that what I have is mine. Okay. So everyone's disappeared. So you're on your own now.
Okay.
Before, now there's one.
Yeah.
Um,
Okay.
So,
That's all right.
Yeah. Okay.
Carry on. Yeah. You understand that you are healed when you give healing. I understand that I am healed when I give healing.
I think read it in an alternative, because I'm not
Okay.
really
Okay.
changing it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
I accept I am released when I let go. I recognize my companion as myself, and so I perceive that I am whole. There is no correction of perception I cannot give, but all corrections are given me. I receive them now by opening the storehouse of my mind, where they are laid, and giving them away. I receive them now by opening the storehouse of my mind and giving them away. So he's saying here that we can see that we are healed when we start to give healing.
Hmm.
And we understand that we are released when we see that we are letting go.
Hmm.
And above all, we can see that we are progressing when we can see our companion as ourselves.
Hmm. Yeah, which is why it's so important to perceive others correctly. It's one of the major aspects of this mind training. You continuously emphasize, perceive others as the Christ, because that's how you teach yourself that you are the Christ. A major way of correcting your mindset. You're saying you have, opportunities daily, hourly. You're seeing other people all the time. So, use those encounters for what they're really for, which is awakening. That's the holy encounter, then, rather than confirming misperceptions of the ego, of separation, that they are somehow separate from you. They're a separate body with a separate mind, with separate intentions. And so that's why relationships are such a focus of this course. He's saying this is how you'll learn the truth, that you are one, that there's only one awareness. By perceiving it in others, you perceive it in yourself. And so I perceive I am whole. Recognize my companion as myself, maybe. So I perceive that I am whole. There's no correction or perception I cannot give, for all corrections are given me. Now by opening the storehouse of my mind, where they are laid, and giving them away. So as I give them, then I experience them. Don't I? There's an experience as I give, and so as I give, I receive the experience of what I'm giving, and that's what it's self-evident. If you look at it from an experiential point of view, that as you give, you receive. It's obvious. But to the ego, it's not obvious, because the ego misinterprets reality. It's upside down and says, no, it's all about what's happening on the physical, on the material level. So you give something. Well, how can you say that you received it? Because clearly you've given it away, and you don't now have it. So you've actually lost it. So, but that's all because it's a false. An external reality is a false construct. And it takes the mind a long time to get to get around this. And when I started this, it's like, but how's that so? Because when you're given something, you've given it away, and because you're still thinking in physical terms. And this is saying that you've got to reorient yourself into the spiritual. And in that domain, then giving, as you give, you receive makes complete sense. It doesn't make sense within the ego's framework. So as Einstein said, we can't solve the problems. Significant problems we face cannot be solved at the same level of thinking we were at when we created them. Okay, so happy to move on to number 3.
Yep. My true self's vision is a correction in perception. It comes from far beyond itself, for it reflects eternal love and the rebirth of love which never dies, but has been kept obscure. My true self's vision pictures the state of pure formless awareness, for it perceives a world so like to this state that what perfect love extended perfectly can be mirrored there. The limited reflections the world presents can show
So
only...
that would be just read the alternative.
Yeah. My true...
Just read number 3 in the original.
Oh yeah. Christ's vision pictures heaven, where it sees a world so like to heaven that what God created perfect can be mirrored there. My true self's vision pictures the state of pure formless awareness, for it perceives a world so like this state that what perfect love extended perfectly can be mirrored there.
Maybe extends, like at present tense. Yeah, limited reflections the world presents.
The darkened world the world presents can show but twisted images in broken parts. The limited reflections the world presents can show only twisted images in broken parts. The real world pictures heaven's innocence. The real world pictures the innocence of pure formless awareness.
Innocence of the state of, shall we say, state of pure formless awareness. Or not. I'll just leave it as pure formless awareness. Okay, so what's he saying in number 3?
He's saying that the real world is something so perfect that we cannot even begin to imagine it. And at best, we can see a reflection of it in this world, but usually we see a distorted version of that. A broken and distorted version of that.
Fragmented images. Whereas the real world, the world correctly interpreted, that's what he means by the real world. The world perceived with the Holy Spirit, remembrance of perfect love, pictures the innocence of pure formless awareness. So we only see that, the innocence of this presence shining through in everyone and everything, and all of the darkened perception, the misperceptions are cleaned. They're gone because we no longer believe in that thought system that created them. So as the product of a corrected mind, the recognition that our perception is inside out, not outside in. So if we look at this diagram tells us that perception is primarily internal, right? So we get the external stimuli happening as a kind of, that's like the raw data of the perception. The external world just provides the raw material, but how those sensory inputs are interpreted is based on what you desire at the core level. You want to be a one self or a separate self, your belief system that expresses that, and then you have thoughts and you have emotions, all of which underpin each perception. So what Yeshua is saying to us is, no, reality is not outside. Your perception is not caused by the sensory data. It's your belief system that interprets the sensory data. That's the primary cause of your perception. And so the world, if you believe in separation as your core, and you believe therefore that you are a separate self and that you're unworthy of love and so on, then you're going to interpret the world accordingly. And the sensory data will be interpreted in that way, and your perception will be a result of your belief. So, but if you change your mind about who you want to be, your beliefs, your thoughts, your emotions must change, and then your perceptions must change. And it doesn't matter that it's the same raw material. How you interpret that raw material, the sensory data, will be different. So, it's within your power to change the world just by changing your mind about it, as he teaches us. Seek not to change the world, seek to change your mind about the world. Change your beliefs, and your world will change accordingly, because your perception is a result of your beliefs primarily, and is not a result of the sensory inputs that you get. Those are just a projection of the mind, which indirectly you can influence, because ultimately it's all projection. But you influence it by changing your inner self. So who am I? What are my beliefs, thoughts, and emotions? That changes the projections as well as changing how you perceive. But what you have direct it doesn't work that way. Okay,
Yeah, I'm back here with you, John. Yeah.
oh, sorry, I think it's really windy, so it's just dropping in and out. It's the Wi-Fi. I'm not sure it is the Wi-Fi. I think it's the actual underlying internet. So let's go back to share screen. Okay, so any other thoughts on number 3?
No, I think it's straightforward.
Number 4.
My true self. Yeah, Christ's vision is the miracle.
Okay.
Christ's vision is the miracle in which all miracles are born. My true self's vision is the correction of perception in which all corrections are born. It is their source remaining with each miracle you give and yet remaining yours. It is its source remaining with each correction I give and yet remaining mine. It is the bond by which the giver and receiver are united in extension here on earth, as they are one in heaven. It is the bond by which the giver and receiver are united in extension here on earth, as they are one in the state of pure formless awareness. Christ beholds no sin in any world. My true self perceives no sin in anyone. And in its sight, the innocent are as one. Their whole awareness was given by its source and itself.
Yes, thoughts on that? What's he saying?
It's saying that Christ is that my true self's vision, or Christ's vision, holds the essence of all miracles or corrections, and its essence perceives no sin in anyone, doesn't see sin. It only sees oneness.
Sees innocence. So we must be, if we're the same, we must be innocent. There's nothing that's ever happened, ever been done to separate us. For sin and guilt to remain, you must be separate from others. It's not the innocent are as one. Their whole awareness, their holiness, and maybe their innocence. Their innocence was given by its source and itself. So our true self is innocent, and we see everyone else as innocent. Perceive everyone else as innocent, because if they're guilty, we must be guilty, and if they're innocent, we must be innocent. It's a very simple equation, really. And the way we learn we're innocent is by perceiving others as innocent. Perceives no sin in anyone. And its perception, the innocent are one. So it sees only one self. And so this becomes the way we learn oneness in this world. And look at the Holy Trinity. The true self is the bridge between pure formless awareness of perfect love, which is just a state, and this world of illusion with all the people and places and events and circumstances and experiences going on. This is the self that perceives it all correctly and says, well, behind it all, there's only one self. So there's really only one of us here. And the illusion that they're separate people and separate forms is just that. It's an illusion. It's a show. It's make-believe. See, the truth is we are just the same self. And that knowledge then connects you with your source. The pure formless awareness of perfect love that is completely transcendent, in which there's not even a conception anymore of the true self. So the Christ and the Holy Spirit, which is the true perceptions that the true self has, are only needed in the illusion. They're not necessary in pure formless awareness of perfect love. They lead you back home. They lead you back there, and then they fade away and are undone. They're not needed anymore. Because in the end, there's only one, God the Father, the source, his ultimate reality, and that's the beginning and the end, the Alpha and the Omega. That's where we all end up. And the true self, or the Christ idea, and the Holy Spirit are just useful training aids. They're there to help us to get out of the dream and awaken from the dream. They're not, and they're a reflection of ultimate reality, but they're not the ultimate reality themselves. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the Holy Trinity is an operating system for your mind to help you awaken. And most Christian theologians don't understand that. They don't understand what it's about. They try and make the Holy Trinity into something that makes sense permanently. And then they've got the problem of, well, if God is one, then how can he be three? Why do you have the different aspects then? If unity is the principle, you can only explain it within the construct of the dream, or the illusion. They're necessary in a dream world to help us to awaken, but they're not ultimate reality. It lies outside of the dream world. So within the construct, they appear to be valid, but it's as with everything in time. So they're not absolute reality. They're just useful guides. They're like the way out of the matrix, the way out of the maze, which is useful when you're in the maze, but is completely not needed when you've got out the maze. Okay, so Christ's vision is the bridge between the worlds.
My true
Happy to
self.
carry on.
Yeah. Christ's vision is the bridge between the worlds. My true self's vision is the bridge between the worlds. And in its power, can you safely trust to carry you from this world into one made holy by forgiveness? And in its power, I can safely trust to carry me from this world into one made innocent by letting go. Things which seem quite solid here are merely shadows.
Just pause it there. Don't just pause. I just want to just pause it there. I just want to fix this, and I can safely trust in its power. Let's just make it a bit easier there. Safely trust in its power, capitalized power, to carry me from this world into one made innocent by letting go. Okay, things which seem quite solid.
Things which seem quite solid here are merely shadows. They're transparent, fairly seen, faintly seen at times, forgotten and never able to obscure the pure formless awareness that shines beyond them.
Now, so
Yeah.
no formless awareness has been restored to vision, the blind can see.
So he's saying here that my true self, or Christ's vision, is the bridge between the world I think I see and the real world. And I can trust in my true self's vision, or Holy Spirit, to bridge that gap. And when I do, what I see in this world will become less obsessive, less powerful, Hi, Joe.
Yeah, sorry, I'm back.
Yeah.
So number 5, any thoughts on that?
By saying that my true self's vision is the bridge between the world I think I see and the real world. And when I travel over that bridge, things in this apparent world become mere shadows. And I return to the real vision that awaits me.
Merely shadows. So we see beyond the solidity of this world. These things start become a bit more transparent, faintly seen at times, forgotten, never able to obscure pure formless awareness that shines beyond them. So everything becomes infused with this light. Everything's lighter, clearer. This seems to be a universal mark of enlightenment, is that people report feeling lighter, clearer, and their entire perception is changed. They no longer perceive in the same way as they did before. So the light in their minds, this pure formless awareness, shines through into the dream world and shows them a different dream. The blind can see.
Yeah, good.
And so this is the Holy Spirit's single gift.
This is the Holy Spirit's single gift, the treasure house to which you can appeal with perfect certainty for all the things that contribute to your happiness. This is the remembrance of perfect love's single gift, the treasure house to which I can appeal with perfect certainty for all the things that can contribute to my happiness. All are laid here already. All can be received but for the asking. Here the door is never locked, and no one is denied his least request or his most urgent need. Here the door is never locked, and no one is denied its least request or its most urgent need. There is no sickness not already healed, no lack unsatisfied, no need unmet within this golden treasury of Christ. There is no sickness not already healed, no lack unsatisfied, and no need unmet within this golden treasury of my true self. So he's saying that as we go back and reunite with the remembrance of our perfect love, we realize that we have never been denied this. It's always existed. And there are no barriers to going back to it. And all sickness will be healed.
Yeah, well, good summary there. Your summaries are getting much better, I must say.
Good.
I think, yeah, no, like you really compared with when did we start this? 2 years ago.
Yeah.
I remember, but I still remember sometimes I'd ask you or Sue, and I'd be like, "Oh dear, like what are we gonna do? This is not good."
Yeah.
Now you're just like, yeah, well, this is what it's saying, and because you're understanding the thought system. So then you confidently because it's actually quite simple what he's saying, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's not rocket science. It's actually quite simple. It's a consistent message, and he's just saying it over and over and over again, and in these different ways. So I can receive when I just ask. So the door is never locked and no one is denied their least request or most urgent need. There's no sickness not already healed, no lack unsatisfied, no need unmet. It's in this golden treasure of my true soul. If you see an error, just tell me, because it's there was a little error there. So he's saying everything's given to us. We just have to ask, and the asking looks in this world like letting go. When we let go of our existing thoughts and emotions about something, then we are asking for something new to come in. Okay, so number 7.
Does the world remember what was lost when it was made? Do I remember what was lost when it was made? Here I remember what was lost when it was made.
Yeah, I think just do this in the alternative. It's not much to translate.
Here I remember what was lost when it was made. For here it is repaired, made new again, but in a different awareness. What was to be the home of sin becomes the center of redemption and the hearth of mercy, where the suffering are healed and welcome. No one will be turned away from this new home, where its awakening waits. No one is a stranger to it. No one asks for anything of it except the gift of its acceptance, of its welcoming.
Gift of his acceptance of his welcoming. It's a bit clumsy. It's a better way of saying that. No one asks for anything of it. No one asks for anything of him except no one is stranger to him. And no one asks for anything. No one is a stranger. Turned away from this new home where salvation awaits. Suffering are healed and welcome. No one be turned away from this new home where their awakening waits, where their freedom waits. No one is a stranger to him. I think actually this works. No one is a stranger to it, to the new home. By him there, cap small h. No one is a stranger to him. Who's the him there, do you think he means? Where the suffering are healed. No one is stranger to him. He's talking about the suffering are healed.
Yeah.
Welcome. No one is stranger to him. Who's the him, do you think he means?
Well, with him with a capital H, isn't it?
Well, you see, they don't capitalize it.
Mm.
No one is stranger to him, to himself, maybe?
Oh,
Anyway,
right.
translated as no one is stranger to it, right? The new home, which I've capitalized.
Okay.
We've got capital. But the capitalization is quite important, actually, because it indicates, often what he's talking about. No one asks for anything of him, again, small h, except the gift of his acceptance of his welcoming. No one asks for anything. Again, what's he meaning? Of him, accept the gift of his acceptance, or his welcoming. Who's the him and his acceptance of his welcoming? Acceptance of his own. It must be his own. No one asked for anything. And maybe we'll just personalize it, just make it a bit more relevant. I do not ask for anything of myself or anyone else, except to accept the gift of its welcoming. It's a bit clumsy. Except to accept the gift of its welcoming. Except just read it.
Here I remember what was lost when it was made, for here it is repaired, made new again, but in a different awareness. What was to be the home of sin becomes the center of redemption and the hearth of mercy, where the suffering are healed and welcome. No one will be turned away from this new home where their freedom waits. No one is a stranger to it. I do not ask for anything of myself or anyone else except to accept the gift of its welcoming.
Last sentence, maybe.
I do not ask for anything of myself.
Maybe instead, the gift of its coming.
Oh yes, okay, that's nice.
That'd be better. Except to accept the gift of its coming.
Yeah, that's good. Do you know, I've got to go. I've got to go, but I could come back at 4 o'clock.
Okay. Can you stay for a couple more? We've got 3 more to do. Or we have
Okay.
to go now.
Yeah. Okay. Carry on then. Yeah.
You finish the lesson. Yeah. And then we can just take a pause and come back. Okay.
So yeah, that's good.
Happy with that? Happy with that one?
Yeah.
See what's he saying in number 7 in summary?
So it's saying here that the real world will heal everyone. No one will be turned away, and what seemed to be sin will be seen through and perceived as purely a mistake. And not everyone will be welcome. There will be no strangers.
Everyone's welcomed into this new home, into the real world. So am I. We're all one in that, and this is the heaven on earth, and the holy relationships. Okay, so Christ's vision is the holy ground.
My true self's vision is the holy ground in which the lilies of forgiveness set their roots. This is their home. They can be brought from here back to the world, but they can never grow in its unnourishing and shallow soil. They need the light and warmth and kindly care my true self's charity provides. They need the love with which it looks on them, and they become its messengers who give as they received.
now. So remember, charity. What's the translation for charity?
Well, charity is holding somebody is seeing someone in their own perfection.
Yeah. So
It's holding the vision of them to be perfectly innocent.
So it's unconditional love, isn't it?
Unconditional. Yeah. Word.
Unconditional love provides. They need the love with which it looks on them, with which it perceives them. And they become its messengers who give as they received. Gifts of letting go set their roots. So he's talking about the gifts, and he talks about them as lilies. So quite a nice imagery. I've changed lilies to gifts.
Okay.
Set their roots. The lilies of forgiveness. So he's talking about gifts like love, peace, and joy. Establish their roots, maybe establish. This is their home. They can be brought from here back to the world. They can never grow in its unnourishing and shallow soil. Unnourishing and shallow environment, maybe. I need the light is pure formless awareness. Warmth and kindly care, my true self's unconditional love provides. I need the love with which it perceives them. And they become its messengers, true self's messengers who give as they received. So these qualities of love, peace, joy, and the lilies of forgiveness are the benefits of letting go, benefits of unconditional love. They need the love with which it perceives them. And they become his messengers who give as they receive. So these values really, the mind, go out and they give what they have received from the source. And so then you become much kinder, much more loving, much more giving into the world, because that's your state now. So as within, so without becomes a natural extension outwards into the world of this transformed inner state. All right, happy with number 8? Number 9, take from his storehouse. You can read in the alternative. Speed things up to just Christ being translated into true self. And take from its storehouse. John, are you still there? I think you're muted. Yeah, still muted. All right, I'll read it then. So I take from its storehouse, so its treasures may increase. Its lilies do not leave their home and are carried back into the world. Their roots remain. Its gifts not leave their home when they're carried back into the world. Just remain. They do not leave their source. Carry its beneficence with them and turn the world into a garden like the one they came from, and to which they go again with added fragrance. Now they are twice blessed. The messages they brought from my true self have been delivered and returned to them. And they return them gladly unto it. What's he saying here? Saying the messages they brought from this home, source, and other world, stay with them in this world, carry its beneficence with them, and turn the world into a garden like the one they came from, to which they go again with added fragrance. So these are inner states, values, which exist within us, and we then extend them outwards. We give the messages that they bring from this inner domain, from our true self that's connected to these gifts. And these messages return to them. So if we look at the integral model, see how it works. We have the inner states. So these are the gifts he's talking about that exist there: love, peace, and joy. Those now extend out through our words and our actions as behavior. So they give the messages that they've received in the inner world, and then these come back. So you get various outcomes that reflect the inner states, and those feed back into the inner state, and they return the gifts and say, well, now it's confirmed in my mind that these things are there, these things work, and they reinforce the existence and the strength of these thoughts and emotions coming from the spirit. So that's kind of what he means here. And they return them gladly to it. Messages return them the gifts. Gifts. Messages they brought from being delivered and returned to them, and they return these gifts gladly to it. Okay, so that's number 9 done. So call John.
I'm back, John. Oh, sorry.
No. Okay. I wonder what happened. Did you just have to go somewhere?
Well, we had somebody at the door, actually. It was a delivery I had to see to.
Right. Okay. No problem. Just go back. So have a look at number 8. You just want to read it. True self vision.
My true self's vision is the holy ground in which the gifts of letting go establish their roots. This is their home. They can be brought from here back to the world, but they can never grow in its unnourishing and shallow environment. They need the pure forms of awareness, warmth, and kindly care my true self's unconditional love provides. They need the love with which it perceives them, and they become its messengers who give as they receive. So it's saying here that my spiritual self, my real self, which is established actually within the art of letting go of misconceptions and grievances, is nourished in this world when we give it the attention and care that it deserves, because otherwise it will perish compared to flourishing.
And as we give these gifts, so we receive them. And what he's saying here, if you look at integral model, we nurture this inner states of love and peace and joy. These are the lilies of forgiveness he talks about, the gifts of letting go, of mastering the art of letting go. Then we extend them out, and we get things showing up in the world. So relationships improve. We're feeling better about ourselves, more connected to others, more connected to everything. And then our experience then reinforces. Our experience comes back into the subjective and says, yes, this is good. These gifts work. These thoughts, emotions, these states of mind, are helpful and beneficial. And so they are reinforced in our minds. We go, yes, I'm on the right track. And more we become convinced that this new thought system and this new reality, the real world that we're living, is where we want to be. And we don't want to go back to the old fear-ridden world of the ego. And he's just saying that in very flowery, literally flowery, because he's using the analogy of flowers language. But, as we accept the gifts and we extend them, they come back to us and they reinforce themselves, and it becomes a self-reinforcing, self-perpetuating system, which now is using the world for what it's for. Right? The world is here as a learning device to help us learn that these are true and that the ego is false. And so now the world and our minds are working in tandem to convince us of that. And that process is called awakening or enlightenment, when you're engaging in that consciously. And that's really what he's talking about here in the paragraph 8. Okay, happy with that?
Yeah.
Can we?
Yeah, no, that's good.
So I take from its storehouse.
I take from its storehouse so that its treasures may increase. Its gifts do not leave their home when they are carried back into the world. Their roots remain. They do not leave their source, but carry its beneficence with them and turn the world into a garden like the one they came from, and to which they go again with added fragrance. Now they are twice blessed. The messages they brought from my true self have been delivered and returned to them, and they return these gifts gladly to it.
Okay, so what's he saying there?
It's saying that when we unite with perfect love, we bring its treasures back into this world where they remain and yet are still connected with their source, with the source from which they came.
Go
So
back here. It's as he's really teaching us the integral model. He's just not doing it in formal terms. We don't have a diagram, but saying these gifts in the inner state extend out into the external world, and then they are given back. So they come back and they are given back. They're reinforced because we're getting feedback from others and from the world that these are good, these work. They then feed back into our subjective experience and tell us, yeah, this that was a good thing. These things are working, and so they given back, as he says, given back to itself. They brought from the messages they brought from my true self have been delivered, so they've been extended outwards and then returned to them. So returned back to the gift. So they returned back. The love and the peace and the joy are messages from the true self. They go out, they extend, they come back because we get feedback from the environment. They return back to the state of love and peace and joy that inspired them, and then confirm that. Okay, love and peace and joy are the way to go, much better than fear, anger, guilt, sin, and attack. And so then they're reinforced in the mind, and then they give back and return these gifts gladly to it. And then that reinforces our perception of our true self, that true self is who we really are. And this becomes a self and an operating system that works and that brings us a lot of love and peace and joy and contentment and happiness. And so it becomes a self-perpetuating, self-reinforcing cycle. And then you're using the world for what it's really for. So it's to actually to help you to awaken. So within the world, you're using the world for all it's for, which is to wake up. And that's really what he's saying in roundabout style there. Okay, happy to go to number 10. Let's read that in the original.
Yeah.
To translate there. So read the original. Behold the store of miracles.
I behold the store of miracles set out for me to give. Am I not worth the gift when pure formless awareness of perfect love appointed that it be given to me? I do not judge perfect love's extension, but follow in the way it has established. My true self has dreamed the dream of a release world. It is its gift, whereby a sweet transition can be made from death to life and from hopelessness to hope. Let me dream with it for a moment. Its dream awakens me to truth. Its vision gives me the means for a return to my unlost and everlasting sanctity in pure formless awareness of perfect love. I behold the store of miracles set out for me to give, and I am not, and I behold the store of miracles set out for me to give.
So miracles are corrections, really.
Am I not worthy of the gift? Or am I not worth the gift when pure forms of awareness pointed that be given to? Okay. I behold the store of correction set out.
Can you read it in the original? There's a bit of translation.
Yeah.
Read it in that, and then read it in the alternative.
Behold the store of miracles set out for you to give. I behold the store of correction set out for me to give. Are you not worth the gift when God appointed it be given you? Am I not worth the gift when pure formless awareness of perfect love appointed that it be given to me?
How about we just say as? It's just easier.
Yeah.
When pure formless awareness of perfect love, or even better, gives it
Am I not
to
worth
me.
pure formless awareness? What gives it to me? Yes, okay. I do not judge perfect love's extension, but follow in the way it has established. Judge not God's Son, but follow the way he has established. Christ has dreamed the dream of a forgiven world. My true self has dreamed the dream of a released world.
So we'll make it shows me, but follow in the way it shows me.
Yeah.
True self has dreamed the dream of a released world.
My true self has dreamed the dream of a released world. And number 5, it is his gift whereby a sweet transition can be made from death to life, from hopelessness to hope. It is its gift whereby a sweet transition can be made from death to life and from hopelessness to hope. Let us an instant dream with him. Let me dream with it for a moment. His dream awakens us to truth. Its dream awakens me to truth. His vision gives the means for a return to our unlost and everlasting sanctity in God. His vision gives me the means for a return to my unlost and everlasting sanctity in pure formless awareness.
Now, so what's he saying there in summary?
So he's saying here that he's summarizing and saying, pay attention to the miracles or the never-ending miracles or corrections that are a gift to us from pure formless awareness. And is imploring, is pleading to us to accept them and not question them or refuse them, because they are a pure gift and will help us move from unawareness to awareness, from sadness to joy, and from hopelessness to hope. And will awaken us finally to the truth of who we really are.
Yeah, I think let's change sanctity to identity. What about?
Yeah.
Everlasting identity in pure formless awareness of perfect love. Very beautiful.
It is, especially, yeah, it's a lovely paragraph.
Lovely paragraph to end. Okay, so you said you had to go.
I've got to go for about an hour.
Yeah, there's still an executive summary and then a key message. So we pause it. Let me just I might be seeing Deborah and Gabriel. So How are you
Okay.
for later this evening? If we do it,
Okay.
if we do it after 6,
Yeah, I think I should be okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe 7 p.m. just to
Yeah.
start, and we'll
Yep. Okay.
do we'll do the rest of this. Just look at the personalized executive summary and the text. Is that okay?
Yeah.
Okay. Just watch the messages in the group. I'm just going to call
Yeah. Yeah, I will.
see what's going on. But yeah, otherwise 7 p.m.
Yeah.
I will
Okay.
confirm that on the group.
Okay, John.
Okay. Thanks, John.
See you
See you
later.
then.
Bye then.
Bye. Bye for now. Okay, so thanks to everyone who joined. Good session, and we will resume at 7 p.m. UK time. It's 8 p.m. SA time tonight. If you'd like to join, you're on the group, then just log into Zoom. If you're not, and you enjoyed the session and you'd like to learn more, then just click the link below, join our masterclass, and yes, I'll in the masterclass I go through exactly how you can join these live sessions. So I hope to see you on the inside soon. Namaste, which means the true self in me acknowledges and honors that same true self in you.